What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dream is in Your Hands Educational Youth Conference, dropping jewels on the next generation. My name is Kesley, so also known as Kes. I will be your moderator for this segment. And I'm just so excited to be here because we're literally making history. And so I just want to fill you guys in with who I will be speaking to. And today I will be speaking with Karen Kilpatrick from Florida and Morgan Ratner from Staten Island, New York, about the power of words and story in literature industry. And Karen has a way with her words. She is an author of 6 published books and forthcoming children's books, including When Pencil Meets Eraser, which was once named one of the best children's books of 2019 by Parents Magazine. And Karen is also the founder of AuthorsForEducation.org and GeniusCatBook.com. Karen, welcome.
Hi, so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
That's good. I'm so excited to have you too. And also next up, we have Morgan. Morgan understands the power behind storytelling, and she works for Macmillan Podcast and Quick and Dirty Tips as a podcast network marketing manager. She's well behind the scenes on that. And she also does editorial and communications for International Literacy Association. So ladies, welcome to the conference. It's so good to have you guys here with me. So good. So I have a quick question for you guys. So I love it when people tell stories. I know that a few friends of mine, they're great storytellers, and it's something about it that when they tell a story, you're just glued in. So what makes a great storyteller?
I'm happy to start.
Yeah, sure.
To me, a great storyteller is someone who can connect with other people, that makes you feel something, that makes you feel an emotion, right? So when you're telling a story to someone, like, what emotions are you evoking and how are they feeling? Like, it's not about you, it's about them and their reactions. So I think a great storyteller can kind of bring you into the universe, make you feel what they're going through and make you invested in that story. And that's what makes the story powerful or special or memorable.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add to that for audio storytelling. A lot of it is kind of the same, like what emotions are being evoked. If you're listening to a podcast that's really education based, how knowledgeable is the host? Are they experts? Are they like sharing facts that are science based? And can you trust them as an authority? I'm sure a lot of people listen to podcasts because they feel like a real affinity with the host. So how do you feel connected to that person that you never see their face? They're kind of just a voice in a little box for you. So it's really important to make that connection with an audience because podcasting is such like a one-to-one intimate medium.
Right. And I truly believe that it is a really intimate one-to-one. And so with that being said, like, what is the difference between storytelling in a book than on a podcast? Because like you said, it's very intimate. And so having a person speaking, in your ears, especially with, audible stuff, but also reading a book too, like, how do you tell the difference or what is the difference between storytelling in a book rather than on a podcast?
I think for podcasting, it's a lot shorter typically than a book. Even if you're listening to an audiobook, that could take hours. Podcasts are anywhere from 5 to an hour-ish, let's say. So I think a lot of that storytelling is there's a lot less time to set up the stage for what you're talking about. If it's a fiction podcast talking about the characters, it's kind of like it has to be immediate and you have to immediately know who the people are and be able to recognize it if it's different voices coming in, because you're more likely than not going to go back and re-listen where you might with a book flip back a few pages if you feel like you missed something. So I think it's really important to be concise and clear off the bat.
Okay.
And I think, just to add to that podcast storytelling and podcasts in general, a little more fluid, right? A book is memorialized. And once that book goes out, it's passed through editors, it's passed through so much, and it's not changing. And podcast storytelling, I mean, you could have your plan, but I imagine, I've never been a podcast host, but I imagine that sometimes the conversation can take different directions depending on the responses of the guest. And so you have to be a little bit more open to adjusting, kind of like you're doing now, interviewing us, depending on our responses. Whereas the book, you have your idea and you complete it and you memorialize it, and that's it, it's done.
Okay, so then let me ask you for like all the students that are watching, what are some things that go into storytelling in a book then or versus a podcast?
Well, I'm happy to speak to the book aspect, and then I'll let Morgan speak to the podcast aspect. You know, for me, I write children's books. So, and I've written some short stories for adults as well. It's just, what do you want to say? Like, what's the big question you want to answer? And who is your audience? You know, what is, I always start like, what is the purpose behind my book and who am I talking to? And I have like ideas all the time. And it's just really about honing in on what I think are the strongest ideas, and then writing and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting over and over and over again until I get to this like polished, perfect piece that I'm really happy with. And then it goes to an editor, and then we revise. So there's like a lot of tweaking and revisions that go into a written work that I am sure don't happen on the podcast aspect.
Yeah, with podcasting, it's really, I think a lot of it depends on if it's going to be fiction based or nonfiction based. I work on a lot of nonfiction based, which do often become interview type of content, which does entail a big editorial process of this is what we want to talk about, this is what we want to make sure that we're discussing, but nothing that is so written out that you are reading word for word and feel like you're kind of not connecting with an audience or a guest. You want them to still be very fluid. Like you said, it is a very fluid conversation and it takes its turns. But there is still the process of, these are the things we want to hit. There's a lot that goes into the audio editing process to kind of bring things together and make it flow as a story that you want to tell. With fiction, there's a lot of standard, this is what we're writing, but writing for audio can be very different than writing for print, because you really have to think about short sentences are really important. No one's going to do like a whole long paragraph that is kind of difficult to listen to. Fiction, audio dramas really rely a lot on heavy sound editing, having a lot of production value to really make a listener feel like they are in the story the same way you'd want them to feel like they're in the story with a written book.
Oh, this is amazing, man. Like that's a lot of gems you guys are dropping right there. And so with all the things that go into storytelling and doing a podcast or whatever, right? I know that the title has to be something that can grab everyone's attention. And so I know that with certain podcasts that, you know, I listen to, it's always something probably like somebody that the podcast is probably interviewing, or somebody that would probably be on, you know, that show, or a certain topic or whatever. So those things is probably a little bit, not say easier, but is I think with a podcast I can actually go and be like, you know what, I want to listen to that. With a book now, it's like I would have to really read. So with the title on a book, how does the title grab a person's attention versus the book and versus on a podcast? So whoever wants to go first.
I can speak about the podcasting
Morgan,
side of
things.
It's very SEO based. So a lot of podcasting is about discovery and finding what you want to listen to. If you are interested in a specific celebrity and want to see if they've been on a podcast, you're going to type that name into Google and see what comes up. So of course, the person putting out the podcast is going to want to put that guest in. A lot of it also goes into, if it's a long-standing podcast, do you want to put like episode 800, something like that, so people can follow along? Here's where you should start. So a lot of it is very much about succinctness, because you want it to be short enough that it doesn't scroll on forever and it takes someone forever to read what the topic is about. Really gets to what the topic is and really emphasizes those keywords that people are going to be searching for.
Okay, cool.
And for a book, you know, you always hear the saying, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Okay,
Mhm.
maybe in life, but in books, everybody judges the book by its
Everybody
cover.
does. Everybody
So,
does. Everybody.
so that cover,
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
yeah, the cover and the title becomes really important. Again, the title, because there's metadata and it's going into systems and it's going to be in shelves. Like, you don't want the title to be too long because you want it something snappy, something that's intriguing and that matches, the art. You want to draw someone in. And especially if you're, walking through a bookstore, like, what catches your eye? Is the title match with the cover? Does that make you want to turn over and read the back of the book description?
Right. I was just about to ask that question. Yeah, because sometimes, so a lot of times, like, I would go pick up a book, but I just, like, I want to feel the book. I want to feel the quality of, like, the book, and even if it's 500 pages or even 4 pages, I just like the quality of, like, the book. So yeah. So.
Right. So it becomes an important part of the package, really, especially in children's books where the title and the art is integrated. And even for, novels and stuff, the title is an important piece to draw people in.
That's pretty dope.
Can I add a note about the art stuff?
Mhm.
I want to like echo that like art with podcasting is also it's one of like the most difficult parts of the process, because you're looking at something that's this big on a tiny little screen, and how do you get that to convey what the show is about with like, I don't know any podcasts that have super long titles because you can't fit it, and then no one would know what it's about. So a lot of that is also based in like, how do we make this something that catches someone's eye immediately when they're just scrolling and scrolling on their phones?
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. And so that would lead to my next question. How do you make storytelling on a podcast and in a book something that is your strength, and also making it, whether it leads to your job and then now ultimately what you're doing for the rest of your life? So how do you use storytelling, as your strengths to make it something that is lucrative for you?
Well, in the book space, right? If you're a storyteller and you love to write, my best suggestion is to write. A lot of people say they want to be authors and they want to tell stories, but there's something about that blank page that's really intimidating. They get in their own head and they're not writing consistently. Something you do consistently, you're going to improve. And you could have a natural talent for it. You could work to improve it. But if you're young, start when you're young. I have a daughter who's 13 who loves to write. And she is on like Wattpad and Episodes. There's all now these like online apps for young writers who can just get their feet wet and just start writing, just start getting feedback and interest from a community. And as you grow, focus on your writing, and you can join organizations, literary organizations, you can join writers groups, like, and just keep developing, keep working on your craft. If that's what you really want to do, I am a huge proponent of the earlier you start, the better, because then you start walking that path, and everyone's path is a long, twisty path. As we know, there's no A to Z line. So, get on that path early and just write.
What's the best time frame to basically start that journey to, like, writing?
Today.
Right. Don't put off something that you can do today for tomorrow. My mom always says that. She said
15 minutes, 20 minutes a day, write in a journal, just write.
Yeah. Okay. Morgan?
I think with podcasting, if you're interested in getting into podcasting, there are so many resources online for how you can start. You don't need like a big fancy mic and like a whole soundproof setup, but there are a lot of resources online that you can find for like quick audio editing tools, how to best market your podcast. And I think really think about what you want to put out there and how it's different from what else is out there. Like, where's your expertise? What can you speak to that no one else can speak to? Is it just you? Is it you and a friend? Really thinking through kind of what can I bring to the table, and getting knowledgeable about what goes into it in terms of, like I said before, like you're writing probably more short form for audio than you would for a book. So like thinking about how you say things and in a way that's going to be memorable in a short form kind of audio context. And just like talking to people. There are so many people in podcasting right now, and so many people that are very willing to give their resources and give their advice and help you get started. It never hurts to ask someone for advice or ask them to listen to something that you've put out.
Right. And so, okay. And so with that being said, like my question for you is with so many people that are doing, having a podcast, like I know so but a lot of times because it's so overly saturated that like, especially with the topics that you want to talk about, like I know that everybody wants to talk about relationships, everybody wants to talk about parenting, everybody wants to talk about whatever it is that they want to talk about, but you find out that your friend or a person that is doing the exact same thing. So like, how do you hone into what is it that will work for you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, podcasting is incredibly saturated right now, and it really is very hard to break through, especially if like you're not part of a network or you don't have like the background in it. I think before you get started, sorry, there's a lot of honking. Before you get started, I think it's really important to just do as much learning as you can. Like, don't just think that you can jump on the mic and spit words and like it's going to be great and it's going to make Apple's top 10. Like, really think about what you want to put out there and do your research. Look at what other shows are doing and look at what you don't like that they're doing and what you do like that they're doing. Find out where they are doing any kind of like advertising or marketing. And I think about what, like I said, like what makes you unique? Like, what do you have a personal experience with the topic that you want to talk to? Do you know specific guests that are kind of like high level in the industries that you're talking about? Do you have like a special outlet that you can go through? I think there are a lot of things, even in spaces like parenting and relationships where a lot of people are talking, that sets people apart. Even like relationship topic podcasts, a lot of people are focused on like, all right, we're going to talk about it from, it's both of us, or I'm going to talk about it from one person's point of view. So what makes yours, what unique things are you going to bring to the table that you're not seeing other people doing and you think would be a benefit to the space?
But that's a really hard thing for a lot of students to actually pick apart, because they're like, I know what is it that I want to talk about. However, these people are talking about the exact same thing and want to do it the exact same way that I'm doing it. So it's like, how do I separate myself from the masses? You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, how do they do that? Because and then also too, on top of that, a lot of times they feel as if, well, fine, you know what, if I get someone that is high profile to be on my podcast, then I would just go viral, and next that's it. But a lot of times I don't think they understand that once you reach that high point, it's easy to be viral, but to also stay there, though, that's also another thing as well. So how do they do that?
It is, I don't think you should ever think of your goal as going viral for something, because that is definitely like that, like you said, that's not consistent. It's not going to happen for every episode. I think you have to be consistent about what you're doing. And in podcasting, a lot of that comes down to knowing the specific cadence. Like, we drop episodes every Monday, not like we put it out Monday and then 6 weeks later we're going to do another one, and then 2 weeks after that, because your followers will never know when to expect something. And if they know when to expect it, that makes it all the more easier to get loyal people to start listening. And you do a bunch of things that you do a lot of cross marketing. For me, like, we have newsletters for all of our podcasts. Every podcast has its own specific social media page. You make special graphics and audiograms for every episode. If you have high profile guests, you give them to them with pre-prepared tweets, so they can literally copy and paste and put something out there and then reach their audience too. You follow up with them after the fact and see if any of their followers said anything, or like talked about a specific topic they're interested in. And you ask your audience, like, you set up a hotline, call me if you're interested, like, tell me what topics you want to talk to, what do you want to hear from me. That way you can know what your specific people are listening to. It's first so important to know your audience and get an understanding of who that audience is before your idea is to get a huge audience and everyone in the world is listening to your podcast. It's much more about finding people who are dedicated and connected to what you're putting out there than everyone. Nobody's audience for anything is everyone. If you try to sell a book to everyone, nobody's going to buy it. You have to have specific audiences, and you have to know who those people are and where they hang out and how you get to them. If you know specific, social channels that they're on, promote there. Find who the people are that you want to talk to. Find who the people are that are listening and cater to their interests.
Okay. So with that being said, catering to people's interests, Miss Karen, how does you mentioned like writing all the time and starting right now, but then what if right now I don't know what to even write about? Because sometimes like I may even personally, like I may have certain things that I want to speak on, but I'm just like, how do I know that this is something that will grow, or this is something that will make me whatever successful? You know what I'm saying? Like how, like what is it, is it that we have to pick that will basically suit us for us to be successful?
Well, it's interesting because there's, do you write to what you think people want, or do you write what you feel? Like, especially in creative writing, right? If you're coming up with a story, there are authors, and especially a lot of self-published authors who, exist on the Amazon ecosystem, right? If you're not talking about traditional publishing, you can go on and they write to a specific niche, to a specific thing that they know that this group of people want. It's like what Morgan said, know where your audience is, where they live, what they're looking for. You can write to that. And if you know they're looking for, you just continue to feed them content, and then you grow fans, and then you could do it that way. I personally don't work that way. I'm creative and I have all these ideas. And once I have my ideas and I write, I will think at some point, like, who can I market this to? Who does it speak to? And where are they? The marketing part, I personally think of after the creative part, because I think, sometimes great art, you're not creating it with someone, you can create with someone specific in mind, but it just depends, I guess, on your creative process. And a lot of times, some things I think are going to do extremely well don't. And sometimes I think things that I've written that won't do so great are, have this massive reception. So in the end, I feel like podcasting can be a little bit more of a conversation with your audience, especially initially, because you're putting out episodes at a set time schedule. You can have that interaction and feedback with your audience. If you're going traditional publishing, it takes a long time, and your feedback is coming. It takes a while to build an audience base and start to understand kind of what they're looking for from you. I say, write what you feel like writing. That's my best advice. Like, and if you're stuck, like, sometimes I just look at the blank page and I just start kind of freestyling on the page. I have no idea what I'm going to write about, but I just start writing. And sometimes I discover something through that process that makes sense to me. And then I will go and like pursue that idea.
So what is your sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
What is your inspiration that brings you to that point where you can actually just start writing, where it's that easy for you, because you wrote multiple books. So you must have a way with words. So what is your inspiration to actually have you start writing?
Well, my ideas are like actually come super random. Like my next book is called Pop, and it's about a colonel who didn't pop popcorn. Like, I was just thinking like, oh, how bad would you feel if everyone popped and you didn't pop? And then there's half pop popcorn, and it's like about being okay with kind of who you are and being different than the norm. So I'm like everyday life, like when pencil met eraser. I was like, oh, okay. Sometimes there's a pencil on top of eraser, sometimes there's not. Like, oh, they're best friends. How did that happen? Like, I just look at everyday life and come up with ideas. But for writing as a craft, for me, I just take 15 minutes to just sit down. And even if I don't have an idea, just to write anything, just for the exercise of writing. When I'm stuck, and it's just practice. And the more you practice, the more you'll find your comfort level. And it's just getting that intimidation factor out of the way. Overcoming that fear of that blank page.
That's fair. That's good. Well, like I said, for time's sake, we do have to move on, but this is a lot of gems, and I'm actually about to rewatch this whole recording and take a lot of stuff, and then I'm sure that this will help me too, as much as the many students that are watching this, as well. So I know, Karen, you had answered this question on the last segment. So I will ask Morgan this question here. So the dream is in your hands. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think that means that you have the opportunity to try things and see what you want to do. And like Karen said before, none of our paths are A to Z. We kind of go like all over the place. I never thought I'd be in podcasting. So if you have an interest in something, explore it, find the right people, buy someone a cup of coffee that you know is doing something like that, and get to hear more about it, because you're not going to find out kind of what you're interested in and what possibilities there are from those interests unless you talk to people that are doing it or that you think might have some knowledge about it.
Okay, that's fair. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for those gems. Two powerful young ladies that are here. I just want to say thank you once again, Karen Kilpatrick and Morgan Ratner. Thank you guys so much for your time, for your expertise, and just for all the gems that you guys have dropped this morning. So just really quick, Karen, can you just let everyone know where to find you on your social media platforms, your handles and stuff like that? And
Yeah,
Morgan,
for my publishing, you can find me at Genius Cat Books. And then that's across all platforms at Genius Cat Books. But if you want to reach out to me for any particular reason, happy to help and answer any questions you may have. You can go to KarenKilpatrick.com, my website, and all my contact information is there.
Sweet. All right, Morgan.
If you want to reach out to me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn at Morgan Ratner. And if you're interested in learning more about podcasts, you can email me at podcast@macmillan.com. Okay,
sweet. All right, you guys heard it here, right? And so stay tuned for our next segment. Thank you, ladies, one more time. Thank you. You guys have been such a blessing. You guys dropped some beautiful gems. And so hopefully we get to take those gems and put it in our pocket and we hold on to those, all right?
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys so much. All right.
Bye.
Take care, ladies.